Welcome back to KavetiLaw Series again. In this video, Mr. Peter Joseph is going to speak on Chapter 13. And what is Chapter 13? What are the advantages of it? And how long does it stay in the credit report? Would there be an automatic stay? And so on and so forth. Mr. Peter, welcome back to KavetiLaw Series again. You were giving all your wisdom to our viewers about Chapter 7, Chapter 11, and about the general bankruptcy. And now you're going to give us some information on Chapter 13, whether is it for individuals or whether it's for corporations, whether it's for small corporations, whether it's for larger corporations, what is the fees and what is the time frame and what is the plan, and is there a meeting with trustees again, all of that. Can you please share your wisdom, please?
I would be very glad to, Mr. Kaveti.
Thank you.
Chapter 13 is called the Wage Earners Plan. You need to have a regular source of income. It really comes up generally if you're trying to save your home, because if you're behind on your mortgage. And with all chapters, when you file any chapter, there is a stay that goes into effect that protects you during the period of the case. So with Chapter 13, if there's a foreclosure going on, if you file in time, it will stop the foreclosure and the bankruptcy court will help you modify your mortgage, catch up on your arrears, and that is the main reason that we use Chapter 13. It's to save your residence.
So that means the court will order the bank to modify the mortgage?
The court will do that, and there's a recent change in the procedure, something called mortgage modification. And in that process, the bank will participate with the filer and the court. And the court will supervise. And that can happen in Chapter 13 also. That can also happen in Chapter 7. That can also work there.
Excellent. So you will make the bank also as one of the defendants because they've lended you the money to buy the property.
Well, they won't be a defendant, but they will be brought in under the procedure of mortgage modification. It's a specific procedure in the bankruptcy court.
Okay. And how long does it take for this Chapter 13?
All right, Chapter 13 either takes 3 years or 5 years. It's more difficult to do, obviously. And while you're doing the 3 or 5 year plan, you must pay the trustee. There's a trustee fee that is a percentage of the debt that is involved in the case. And how do they know if it's 3 or 5 years? That goes back to the means test, which I described in a prior video. And that is, if you're over the median income for that county, you're going to have to do Chapter 13, and then it depends how much you are over there and how much you owe.
And let's say if somebody has alimony or spousal support or child support obligations and they're not able to pay that, would they be able to bring that in this Chapter 13?
They would not get rid of it in Chapter 13 because that's what's called a priority claim, and the court will not cancel that.
What is a priority claim, Mr. Peter?
There's a list of priority claims, and that's one good example is the matrimonial claims, also certain tax liability and liability for drunk driving,
right?
Things of that nature. There's a whole list.
You mean to say the penalties and any sort of penalties if they have, they can't get rid of that?
Correct.
Gotcha. And
although, as we were discussing, Mr. Kaveti, if you get to the end of Chapter 13, if you manage to get to the end of the 3 or 5 years, the decree can relieve you of property settlements in divorce proceedings.
Okay.
Or separation proceedings.
Okay. And in terms of the documentary requirements for Chapter 13,
yes.
Is it the same documentary requirements what you require for Chapter 7 and Chapter 11?
Basically the same for Chapter 7, but again in Chapter 11 it's really business documentation.
And what would be the court fees and attorney fees?
The court fee is about $275, and the attorney fee here is about $4,000.
Right. And do the client have to come and personally appear before the court for Chapter 13 as well?
No, it's similar to Chapter 7, but there will be many trustee meetings because the trustee will remain involved in Chapter 13.
So that means they have to pay the trustee every time when they see the
Well,
trustee?
it's a fixed percentage. I think it's 7% of the total debt.
Right. And would that, I mean, let's say if they have a business, and would that affect their business as well if they're filing on their own individual capacity?
No, that would not affect their business, no.
And would that affect their spousal income as well?
Well, again, their spousal income would have to be taken into account
Oh.
for the means test.
And let's say some of our clients have businesses overseas,
Yes.
and would this affect would they have to disclose their incomes and expenses from overseas as well?
Yes, they would.
They have to disclose.
They would.
And even in Chapter 13, they have to provide you all the bank statements and the tax returns?
Yeah, because they want to know what your income is, and that would include overseas income.
Right. And what is your advice to the clients when somebody calls you? Would you advise them at Chapter 7 or 11 or 13? How do you determine? What do you advise? How do you advise? What factors you take into consideration when you're advising? Because for a common man, they all sound same for us.
Yes.
And being an expert, you would know what chapter they have to file. You would recommend them. You would advise them based on their incomes and expenses. You will see what are the factors you consider advising them.
Well, the first thing I advise them is what is your problem. If you have credit card debt that you need to get rid of, and that's it, that would be Chapter 7.
Okay.
If you're a small business that has fallen behind during COVID and you want to keep operating, that would be this new part of Chapter 11, this new streamlined part of Chapter 11.
And Mr. Peter, lately the federal government in U.S., they've given a lot of assistance to a lot of corporations and individuals, and still they're not able to cope up. Even I think this second term also people are getting some reliefs and small business loans and other things. And tomorrow, if they're not able to repay these small business loans, SBA loans, would they still can file bankruptcy?
They would not be dischargeable.
They would not be dischargeable.
No, a loan from the government would not be dischargeable.
Okay. And government is giving some relief. Would they still have to disclose that in their bankruptcy petitions?
Yes, any income that you're getting from whatever source would have to be disclosed in the bankruptcy proceeding.
In the process, let's say somebody files a bankruptcy and they win a lotto, what will happen?
During the bankruptcy,
Right.
you could keep the money because the way the bankruptcy works is the income they take into account is everything up to the time you file.
Gotcha.
So if you win the lottery after, they'll say congratulations.
Okay. And sometimes people get hurt in accidents and they get compensation from insurance companies and everything. So would that have any influence on the bankruptcy petition?
Well, again, if you got that before the bankruptcy, that would be counted.
Not after.
Not after.
Okay, excellent. If they get some sort of, let's say their family members, they die and they get some life insurance benefits. So after filing the bankruptcy, would that have any effect on the bankruptcy petition?
No, because again, they only take into account the state of affairs before the bankruptcy.
So that would not have any effect. So
Correct.
they can still continue to proceed with the bankruptcy petition.
Yes.
Perfect.
Bankruptcy is intended to set you up to go on with your life.
Brilliant. I guess these are very important points which you have given it to our viewers. And one last question for from our viewers to you. If somebody has only just credit card bills and these credit card companies are harassing them, do you handle such cases?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's what Chapter 7 is
That's
for.
what Chapter 7 is.
Yes.
I mean, if somebody don't want to file a bankruptcy, would you be still able to handle this credit card bills?
No, I do not do that. That's called debt negotiation, and it's very time consuming.
Oh.
And I don't do that.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Peter, for giving all your time. And we intend to come up with more videos in other subjects like immigration and general litigation and family law and other areas. And we would like you to be our contributor, and we would set up some time so that you can speak on different areas of law.
Great.
Thank you very much, Mr. Peter, for giving your precious time on a weekend. Thank you very much, and have a great weekend.